now. It just makes me want to go on holiday.
Pack your bags, honey. It's quicker than you think.
I can't say how much it wants to make me on holiday. Jenny, thank you so much and welcome back again.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate you spending this time explaining to our audience the value and the opportunities that Cyprus offer. One of the questions that's come up in the, during the sort of registration, and almost an impossible question to answer, is when selecting your destination, how do you choose? I mean, which country is going to give you the best weather? Is it politically stable? But which is better? And it is almost impossible. It's such a personal choice. It's difficult to say, but clearly for yourself, after looking at all of the options, when you left South Africa, you decided to move to Cyprus, and you've really embraced that decision. So we look forward to hearing from you about why you think it's best to choose Cyprus as a destination. Jen, are you going to pop on your presentation?
Yes.
And then I will mute myself, and looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I think, just in terms of the opportunities, what's happening in Cyprus at the moment, it just makes a lot of sense from the point of view that as you mentioned, Lee, there are so many places that people can choose from. It's all about a lifestyle choice and what your plan B at the end of the day is going to be. A quick overview of Cypriot Realty and myself. We've established in 2008, so we've been going for 14 years, which is great. We have offices in Sandton, Cape Town, and in Cyprus. We are definitely recognized and respected as the authoritative investment specialists, obviously promoting Cyprus primarily, but we've had a number of clients that have asked us to investigate other places in the world as well. And we are definitely a plan B specialist in terms of what we offer with our services. I'm not going to dwell too much on this slide. I know the audience is going to be able to get this in more detail, but what I am going to cover is just how conveniently located Cyprus is strategically. So if we have a look at the map of the Mediterranean, you can very quickly see that, of course, barring the ban on flights to Moscow, which is 3 hours away, it's very easy to be able to get around the world from Cyprus. There are direct flights from South Africa via the Middle East. Unfortunately, there's nothing directly into Cyprus itself. But if you want to go shopping in Milan, you want to nip off across to go to the UK, you want to take the kids off to Dubai, it's very, very easy to get around from Cyprus. Strategically, it's very well located. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the country itself. In the previous seminars, I've kind of glossed over this, but I do think that more and more investors are looking at potentially Cyprus not only being a plan B, but potentially looking at a plan A. There are 5 main cities that we are going to cover today. Just to give you an overview, Cyprus has the luxury that they do have 2 international airports. The one on the left-hand side near Paphos has all of the low-cost airlines that come along from the EU, etc., and most of the bigger airlines come through to the Larnaca area. So we're going to cover the 5 cities in detail, so you can just get an overview of what you're looking at. If I can just get rid of this poll here. So the first city we're going to cover is going to be Nicosia. So Nicosia is the capital city of Cyprus. It's very, very much your commerce. This is where the big high-rise buildings are. They do have a very old part of the city where you have the green buffer line that separates the northern part of Cyprus from the Republic of Cyprus itself. But you'll see very much this is where commerce takes place. But yet you still have evidence of the 10,000 years worth of history that happens on the island. Ayia Napa is known as the party capital of the island. This is where everybody comes for 3 or 4 months of the year. They just want to go to the pubs. That's very, very similar to Ibiza. They want to go to the party land. They want to enjoy everything. They want to bring the kids, just have a lot of sun and fun, what they want to do. But yet you still have beautiful, majestic parts of natural of the island that makes it quite appealing. Larnaca, where the international airport is much more of the industrial part of the island. So here we have all of our big refineries. And in fact, when Cyprus has discovered their natural gas points, a lot of it's going to be happening in the Larnaca province itself. This is where the big airport is. So all of the airlines coming from around the world will dock down in Larnaca, but yet they have beautiful parts of nature. In fact, they've got the flamingo flay, where every year it's a big migratory part of the bird. So an introduction into the European Union. They have got also beautiful wrecking things that people can go deep sea diving. And of course, the promenade itself is pristine and beautiful. Limassol is the Sandton of Cyprus. This is where all of the big boys with lots of their money, they want to live in Limassol. Reason being is that this is where the main port is. So a lot of the people there that are doing any import export kind of businesses are going to be based there. You have the big yachts that come from across the world that want to dock there. A magnificent uninterrupted promenade that is probably the longest uninterrupted but walkable, swimmable and cyclable promenade in the whole of the European Union, which is quite interesting. But here you can see there's money. I mean, everybody wants to go bigger, they want to go better. You know, you're looking at apartments starting at around about 3, 4, 5, 6 million euros. This definitely is where the big money is in terms of where the world is coming through to. Paphos is the Western Cape. This is where we've got the more relaxed environment. You don't have big high-rise buildings. There's no huge big commercial industry. There's certainly nothing happening on a commercial front as well. They have their own international airport, but as I mentioned, this really services the low-cost airlines coming in and out of the EU. Most of the Gulf estates actually on the western side of the island in the Paphos province. Main reason is because of the lay of the land where we have the mountain range in the center of the island. When the snow melts after the winter months, that flows down into the western part. That goes to the natural rivers and to the natural dams on the western side. A lot of the wine estates are there as well. So as I said, very similar Cape Town. And of course, you've got beautiful opportunities for anybody that's looking for hikes, outdoor cycling, etc. The reason why Cyprus is very popular is they've got the best permanent residency programs currently available in Europe. And I want to touch a little bit more why that has been stated as the case. Very favorable tax environment. The lifestyle is amazing, safety fantastic, but the most important factor, Louise, and to those that are listening in today, is the language. Cyprus is an ex-British colony, so everybody speaks English. Your documentation is English, although Greek is an official language. You don't have any issues when it comes to interpretations or not being able to understand things. Everybody speaks English and everything is in English as well. It's very South African. Nando's is there, of course. We've got a number of South African butcheries. They've got a lot of the South Africans that have relocated here that are playing in the rugby team. The golf estates, as we so much love in South Africa, are prevalent on the island. Ocean Basket is there. They're expanding all the time. I hate to say it, it's about 60% more than my Ocean Basket in South Africa. But hey ho, I suppose that's what happens when you're living in Europe. Very South African as well in terms of our some of the ties to the darlings. Professor Christian Barnard actually passed away in Cyprus. He loved this little part of the Mediterranean. He kept on saying it's a little gem. We all know about Gary Player. He's busy designing and implementing a golf estate also on the western side. There are a couple of hiccups in terms of impact assessment studies, but at the end of the day, the guy's really committed to having something on the European circuit. Very much a booming economy. So Cyprus has got massive infrastructure that's happening around in terms of new marinas that are being built. This year, they're expecting a 6.3% GDP growth in terms of the economy, which is quite good. Very low unemployment rates. You're looking at very much single digits there. And the tourism, despite what happened in COVID and the year post-COVID, we're still looking at 3.5, 4 million annual tourists that are coming from around the world just to enjoy their place in the sun. International confidence is there. Moody's, Fitch and their ratings are confident. They believe that this is a country that they're quite comfortable that is going to be offering their investors something that is nothing to be alarmed about. The really big draw card, though, is Cyprus's energy and their natural gas. They've just discovered another block, and they reckon between 12 and 15 trillion cubic feet of natural gas is going to be discovered just in Cyprus's exclusive economic zone. By 2027, this is going to be commercially available, and there has been a huge push by the European Union to flow funds into Cyprus because of what's happening in Russia. They want the rest of the world and certainly Europe to be less dependent on Russia, less dependent on Syria. So they're trying to push Cyprus to get these things up and running as soon as possible. But 2027, I think, is a realistic goal that they're going to be aiming for. They've already invested in a pipeline to start getting this natural gas through, and that's an 800 million to 1 trillion euro investment going via Egypt. So when the gas gets discovered, when it gets exploited, it'll go via this pipeline into the EU. So again, this is quite a strategic point of why Cyprus is economically favorable. Some of the tax benefits, though, first of all, there is no inheritance tax. That's a massive important factor when people are looking at a plan B to create a legacy. Your first 19,000 euros is exempt as an individual. And this actually means that when you're renting a property out, if you have a property in two names, that's 19,500 euros each. before you have to start paying tax in Cyprus. And the top end sits at 35%. Investors that are looking to start a company, your corporate tax is capped at 12.5%, and a lot of rebates and write-offs for people in certain industries, and I can explain a little bit more. And more importantly, if you are setting up a business structure, there is zero tax on your dividends for the next 17 years. So what that basically means, if you have a company and your profit is 100,000 euros, you pay 12,500 euros to the Cypriot tax coffers, and the balance of 87,500 euros, you can declare yourself as a dividend and pay not 1 cent tax. Very advantageous. I have a next slide where I am comparing South Africa versus Cyprus. And you can just see in terms of the current, the benefits of in the European Union versus in South Africa. But the most important thing is your top end of tax rate and zero inheritance tax. So very, very favorable to get something up and something meaningful. When we have a look at the first world medical opportunities, in terms of the fact that you have obviously private hospitals, they've got their national health called GESI, and I'm going to touch why that's quite important further on down the line in the presentation. They, of course, have got international universities. Your children want to study medicine, they can go to the University of Cyprus where they have a med school. They want to do social sciences, whatever it is. Cyprus has a booming tertiary education facility all the way from junior school the way to postgrad as well. So very much a favorable place for people to look at. But it's the incredible lifestyle that people are enjoying in Cyprus. So from the snow in the mountains in the winter months, all the way to the beautiful Gulf estates, to sailing out the Mediterranean, this is a country for living and enjoying. I'm going to touch on the 2 programs that are available for permanent residency. So the first one is secure residency as an investor, and the second one is to secure residency if you wanted to relocate and make Cyprus your second home. So there are 2 programs in Cyprus. One is the fast track, and the other one is the category C, or as I fondly call the slow track program. And I'm going to touch more on the detail on the difference between these 2 programs. So first of all, on the fast track program, this is very similar to a lot of the other programs in Europe where you have 3 the descendants in the same family line. So it'll be the main investor, 1 level up and 1 level down. It does include both sets of parents. So that'll be of the husband and the wife. Of course, any dependent child up to the age of 25. You can still apply in their 25th year as long as they haven't turned 26 yet. They will qualify on the fast track program. What you basically need to do is you need to invest 300,000 euros in a new property. A new property is defined as a property where transfer has not yet taken place, or off plan, or a property where building is still taking place. You need to have proof of income of a minimum of 30,000 euros per annum for the main applicant, 5,000 euros for the spouse and any dependent children, and 8,000 euros each for the parents or the parents-in-law. You also need to have, like any other country in Europe, your proof of your source of funds, a clear criminal record, and at the end of the day, you're going to be paying off your VAT. On the fast track program, this takes 2 to 3 months for your permanent residency permit to be issued. This is not a temporary residency permit, it's permanent residency for life. Yes, you can rent your property out on the program to the short-term market. You cannot do it out to a long-term tenant because the ruling of the residency program dictates that you cannot do that in terms of what they're looking at. You don't have to live in Cyprus for your residency to remain valid, but you must visit that island 1 day every 2nd year. You're entitled to free medical insurance in Cyprus for life. There's nothing in terms that you have to worry about. This is where it comes in a program all on its own. And like a lot of the other countries in Europe, once you reside in the country for a number of consecutive years, as a tax resident, you can be entitled to apply for citizenship. If we're having a look at the slow track program, first of all, this is a very different program where any dependent child over the age of 18 does not qualify. Mums and dads-in-law automatically do not qualify. However, the benefit of the slow track program is non-related people can buy property together. So if you have a group of your friends, the 4 of you can get together, you can put a deposit on the house, you can actually pay it off. Each individual will qualify and apply as a main applicant. You can put your dependent children on the title deed. Once they are the age of majority, they'll be able to apply as well. And this actually allows anybody who wants to do something where they're not so highly exposed to such a big investment to be able to qualify on the slow track program. Reason it's a slow track program is the following. First of all, there's no minimum investment requirement, unlike the fast track program. However, you do need to remit funds into a Cypriot bank account, 12,000 euros for the main applicant, 12,000 for the spouse, and 5,000 for each dependent child. You have to prove income of minimum of 12,000 euros per annum, plus 5 for the spouse and the children. Of course, like all the other programs, proof of source of funds and have a clear criminal record. And here you'll pay your transfer duties. Cyprus has got a tiered transfer duty structure. I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but I will share that with the audience should anybody require more information. Difference is from 2 to 3 months. This is 2 to 3 years. You start off as a temporary resident. Every year, your residency has to be renewed, and after 2 to 3 years, that converts to permanent residency. You can, however, rent it out to a long-term or a short-term tenant. And again, you don't have to reside in Cyprus for your residency to remain valid, just 1 day every second year. And at the end of the day, like the other program, once you are a permanent resident living in Cyprus and as a tax resident as well, you can qualify for citizenship. Just to recap the difference between the two programs, fast track's 3 generations, slow track's 2. There's no minimum investment on the slow track to buy a property. On the fast track, it's a minimum of 300,000 euros. There's no minimum investment that you have to put into a Cypriot bank on the fast track. However, for the slow track, you need to put that money in. Proof of income on the fast track, 30,000 for the main investor, 5,000 for the spouse and dependent children. On the slow track, it's a different story altogether. Difference as well on both of these programs is 2 to 3 months versus 2 to 3 years. And both of them allow you to get citizenship, but the residency immediately is on the fast track for life. Slow track, it's temporary initially, then converts to permanent residency. The main big advantage, Louise, and everybody listening today, that people are focusing on Cyprus for a plan B, which becomes a plan A, is there's free medical on Cyprus's national health program. On the slow track program, however, you would need to have private insurance. This is a massive saver if we have a look at what people are facing with medical costs in South Africa. So this is really something that is a huge, big draw card. In terms of the immigration, you mentioned at your introduction to the seminar that a lot of people are looking at things in terms of how do we get across. It's a very simple process. You'd be able to do home quarantine for the fur babies. You need to get all of your documentation apostilled at DIRCO. I can assist with opening up your offshore bank account. You don't even need to be in Cyprus for that. And of course, you make sure that you got all of your documentation and your financial affairs in order to do your financial immigration. In terms of the quarantine process for the fur babies, it is a 4-month process. Once the little ones have had their first inoculation, their first bloods drawn, it's gone to a processing plant in the European Union. Once it comes back, they'll have to do the quarantine at home, but they can certainly roam around the properties as they would normally do. When you arrive in Cyprus, this is now your new destination. You've got to register, obviously, with the authorities, prove that you have a property that you've purchased or you have a lease agreement. You can then apply for your work permit and go across and work in the country. You need to secure medical insurance. And initially, remember, you will be securing temporary residency. That will then extend for 5 years while you're living there. Only at that stage will you be able to convert to permanent residency, and then your 5-year kicks off. So in essence, on your immigration program, you're looking at a 10-year term to become a Cypriot citizen, as opposed to the other ones where this is a little bit faster than that. But let's have a look at the property information, because it's very important for investors that are looking on the fast or the slow track program to understand in terms of what they potentially could be earning. So you're looking at about 1.5% to 5%, depending on where the property is, for a long-term tenant, between 6 and 9% plus on your short-term lets. And that's purely because all of the properties that we will be introducing you to for the short-term rentals will be in highly sought-after areas where tenants want to go. You also have the opportunity where you're looking here, where the other, the capital growth, conservatively looking between 6 and 9% per annum. And of course, you've got your best options are your lock-up and goes. As I whip through these slides, just looking at the different types of properties, you can see it's a very, very similar scenario to what we get in South Africa. You get your villa estates. You get your apartment blocks and townhouse developments. Of course, you get your luxurious seafront villas where that could perhaps be your vanity purchase, where you have nobody around you and you're looking at spending between 5, 6, 7 million euros, if that's so for how you're wishing. Your frontline villas, which is much more your camp space style, your Umschlungas environment where you have the big homes right at the edge of the Mediterranean. You've got your beach villas where the Mediterranean is 50, 60 meters away. You can go and dip your toes in the Med. And of course, your hilltop properties where you've got these unbelievable views down the coast where you can see everything and enjoy the lifestyle. And, just take everything in terms of its grandeur. For those of you that want to own a slither of sky and you want to have an apartment, of course, you have high-end frontline apartments scattered around the coast. But the realistic options, though, you need to look in terms of what is your plan B. Are you looking to get excellent yields and good occupancy? You'll certainly get that on holiday rentals. Do you want to get something a little more solid, a little more stable, so you know with your cash flow to look for a long-term tenant? There's very much limited stock for long-term tenancy because of the war that's happening in Russia. We've had many Ukrainians that are coming to work in Cyprus because the internet is fast. They can certainly do what they need to do. So for owners that are looking to rent their property out on the long term, they're getting phenomenal rentals. Fortunately, that is going to be a tipping point. How is it going to affect the local property market? But that's something that every country actually has to face at the end of the day. What I've done, Louise, is I've looked at a comparison. Let's see what you can get in South Africa versus what you can get in Cyprus, and let's compare apples with apples. Well, first of all, your 100,000 euro investment, which is 1.8 million, you can get a 2-bed apartment in Stellies. It might be for your child who's wanting to study. You're looking at 24-hour security on site. You've got levies of about 1,900 rand per month, and the size is quite decent in terms of what's available for student accommodation. Conversely, in Cyprus, down right by the coast, you have a studio apartment for the similar kind of investment. This particular project is linked to a 3-star hotel. So in essence, you can get a year-round rental in terms of the short-term guests. The size is a little bit more substantial to what you have in Stellies, but the difference here is that your actual property ownership costs are a lot less than what you'll be paying in South Africa. Let's jump onto 3.6 million. Well, in South Africa, let's hop across to Bryanston. It's got 3 beds, 2 baths. I saw in the ad that it has an inverter. Gosh, that's something that we certainly don't have issues in Cyprus. There's no load shedding. We don't have to worry about factoring that in. Your rates are very heavy, about 2,200 rand a month, and you have to pay an extra 850 rand a month for the security. Well, down in Cyprus, if we're looking at Limassol, where all the Santon of Cyprus, let's equivalent that to, this is where the money is. You get a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment. The sea is 150 meters away. The levies are about 1,000 rand a month as opposed to 2,200 in South Africa. You don't have a security bill because that's not a factor in Cyprus. And the big difference is here, you'll be able to get a really good, solid long-term rental in where people will be paying conservatively between 800, 900, maybe 1,200 euros a month to rent this place. So that certainly has some meaningful meat in terms of your investment return. If you're looking at the 300,000 euro investment, that's 5.4 million at today's rate. In Zimbabwe, I saw a 3-bed, 2-bath townhouse. It's quite a drive down to the sea. Your levies are quite heavy, and your rates, if you equate it over the year, you're looking at about 2,000 rand a month equivalent. Down in Kanopaphos, you can get, Kanopaphos is the tourism area of the Paphos area, 2 beds, 2-bath apartment in a highly, highly popular townhouse development. 4 minutes walk down to the beach. You'll be able to rent out very easily for about 200 to 250 euros a day, very easily. And you're looking at about a 1,300 euro per month long-term rental. Your levies are 1,500 rand a month, half the price of Zimbabwe. And your rates, if you're looking at the difference, it's a fraction of the price. And the main difference is because your property ownership costs, Louise, and everybody listening today, is a fraction of what we're paying, what we're having to face in South Africa. Now's the time. There's a huge demand. The prices are increasing. As I mentioned, there's a limited stock to decent available properties. Everybody wants to live in that 7-kilometer wedge of the coast of the Mediterranean. You don't want to be far inland where you can't see the sea, smell the sea, have a walk down to the beaches. The favorable property taxes, the natural gas is already having a massive impact on the number of companies that are relocating to Cyprus. And that means they're bringing their staff. That means the staff's bring their family. That means the children are going to the local schools. That means everything has a ripple effect on what's happening of the desirability of people wanting to live in Cyprus. And I do think, in the previous presentation, it was alluded that countries are changing their legislation all the time. There's a window of opportunity now that people should start taking advantage and thinking about what they want to do long term and moving in the future. So now what? Well, you're invited. The big advantage is, first of all, we have a very successful, robust referral commission for anybody that knows somebody that might be interested in investing in Cyprus or relocating to Cyprus. Give me a call, we can be in touch. But the most important factor is you need to come on an inspection trip. You can't be expected to make a decision on any country without jumping on a plane, buying the ticket and spending some time to look around at the opportunities. We have a wonderful 5-day property inspection trip offer. It's completely personalized. It's a meet and greet. You're not herded in a bus with 15 or 16 other couples. This is your time. We spend a lot of time going through your personal needs, your requirements. Have you opened up your bank account? Do you need to meet with a taxation specialist? Do you want to expand your business and set up shop in Cyprus? This is not something to be taken lightly. We respect your time. We want to make sure that your look, see, discover trip is maximizing every second of the day. The costs: you need to buy your airline ticket. At the moment, Qatar and Emirates are looking at around about 12,000 Rand per person return. You're looking at 20 euros each for a Cypriot visa, unless you have a valid Schengen visa in your passports. We will put you up at a 5-star hotel. First 3 nights are on me. I'm hosting you. The remainder of your stay is 120 euros per double room per night. So that's basically 120 euros for both of you. What we do as Cypriot Realty is we have a fantastic 360-degree service. We'll first of all meet and greet you, understand your needs analysis, come with us on an inspection trip. We're often here in Cyprus, even when we're not traveling to South Africa on business. We'll be here. We'll take you around, look at the different properties. We'll help you open up your offshore bank account. If you prefer to open up your bank account in South Africa, I have a relationship with one of the banks that is very unique that I can open up remotely. As my client, you do not have to leave your desk in South Africa, send everything through to me. I have a relationship with them. They will do all the due diligence. They'll then do a Teams meeting, make sure the documentation is signed. You'll then go to the Cypriot High Commission to sign all your documentation in front of an official. But then when you're in Cyprus, we will go through and hold your hand through the entire residency acquisition. We have a property management and rental company that we will help you with once you've purchased your property. Do you need to buy new furnishings? We'll put it on our short-term listing for you to make sure that you get the best possible daily rate for your place. And at the end of the day, when you want to get rid of your property, we'll pop it into our affiliates to make sure that you get the best deal to be able to sell your property at the end of the day. So Cypriot Realty, we work with you to realize your plan B. So whether you're looking at the residency option, whether you're looking at a property you have available and you want us to help you rent it and manage it out, we certainly are this team that we would like to consider that you'll have a look and explore your plan B with us.
Thanks, Jenny. Sure, it's a lot of information. Thank you so much for presenting it so clearly and so digestibly. I have a few questions, if you don't mind. So we just to go back. So I know you mentioned initially that a lot of people looked at Cyprus, as a plan B, but now that is shifting to actually wanting to go and reside in the country, send the kids to school, potentially use the universities. So which process then, fast track versus slow, would you recommend to somebody who's actually looking a little bit longer term? And it's strange. I live in an area in Cape Town, and when you say it's the Cape Town of South Africa, just in my little area of 42 homes, about 8 or 9 people have emigrated this year to various destinations with their children, around the age between 10 and 13. So children are about to go to either into high school or into the senior part of junior school. And they've moved. They've sold up their houses at around 7-8 million Rand, and they've made the move. So, from your side, if I am looking to actually physically move the family, which of the two processes would you recommend?
So Louise, I would actually even the immigration program, because on the fast track program, you may not work in Cyprus. You can, however, open up your own company and trade via that. And the benefit of that is that you're not reliant on some of the taxes that would be involved in terms of working for a boss. So you could open up your own consulting, Louise Consulting CC or limited company, then go to companies and say, I see a job advertised. Can I consult on 3 months, 6 months, or work on contract? And they're happy as the company because they don't have to then go through the onerous human resources issues. You're on a fixed term basis that you pay on invoice. Also then means that the children can do exactly what they want to do. You don't have to buy property on the immigration process. You can rent. So for families that are seriously considering, not too sure if this is really what I want to go, come across on the immigration program, rent a place, see if you like the country, get the children into the schools, and then you can make a decision about buying a property down the line. The only issue with that is that you're not entitled to some of the benefits like being on the National Health Program. But that's, you can just take out private insurance, and it's a lot less than getting private insurance in South Africa. The minute somebody's going on the fast track program, remember, Lou, that's really is your plan B, it's your hedging against insurance, that should something happen, I get my one-way ticket out of South Africa, I arrive in Cyprus, and they won't turn me away. It also that means that everybody that's considered on the program has that residency status for life. The partners of your children who, when they get married, will then apply for them to qualify. And of course, the grandchildren, once you eventually have them, will be on that program too. But it really is important that investors are looking at, what do I want to do now? Do I want to get into the country where I have that base of either the slow track or the fast track? Or do I really want to lock, stock and barrel, get on a one-way ticket and move dogs, fur babies, children, and start my new life across? And that's where we come in to help, just in terms of understanding, is this a knee-jerk reaction, or is this something that you feel that you're wanting to be doing long term? Because it's very, very expensive, as we know, to get the movers out, to start, paying all the vets bills, to get fur babies ready, to start looking at schools. You've got to come across once or twice. You've got to do interviews so the children can make sure that they're in the right place. This is not a decision to be taken lightly. However, if you think that there's a possibility that down the line this could be your new home, then go on the fast track. Fast track, if you have the money, you're in, you're done, you're dusted, your mum and dad are involved, your in-laws are involved, they can move across in the interim. So while life happens in South Africa, let the folks come across, let them be benefits of the free medical, let them be benefits of a wonderful lifestyle where they don't have to worry about their safety, let them be benefits of where they don't have to worry about inverters and load shedding and water issues and no language barriers. So this is another consideration. I find a lot of my middle-aged investors are actually buying properties for the folks to come across first. They worried about life for now, and then they're going to follow the folks to come through on the other side.
Mm-hmm. And so if you, so you choose the program that's most suitable. You mentioned working in Cyprus. A lot of times I get asked the question, should I sell my property in South Africa, or should I keep my property in South Africa? And what does it mean if I am actually keeping my business going in South Africa? So for whatever reason, I decide to keep my head office in South Africa, but I'm moving myself and the family across. That's more of a kind of financial structure of how do I look at this process. Do you have any comments on that? I know everyone has a unique situation, so it's difficult to kind of give a blanket answer or blanket solution. But what have you found through the relationships that you've had with your clients to date?
Okay, so in the 14 years that we've been running the business and helping South Africans with a plan B, a lot of people are actually wanting to liquidate. So it gets to the point where they'll get the residency, it's there in the background, and they very quickly, as they're coming back and forth to Cyprus, are realizing that this is a place that they could see themselves in their forever home. And it makes a lot of sense to try and liquidate as soon as you can. We just don't know, with cycles, with real estate, property prices, turbulence, the things that happen, and rather rent if you're still, life continues in South Africa. So business, as you said, let it carry on. You're earning an income. But just remember, in terms of your financial immigration down the line, when you're going to wanting to do that final move, you're going to have disposed of a lot of your assets anyway and bundled up into different structures. So my advice is to don't do anything too rashly, But eventually you want to get to the point where you are liquid, so that when you need to make that move, you're not still now waiting to sell a house. The families all decided what they wanted to do. Maybe the kids have got enrolled already. Maybe, as I said, the folks have already moved across. But that seems to be the trend that I'm finding now, is that people are saying, I should have, I didn't. I wish I had done it. But hey, this is a situation that we're in. And you mentioned, yes, Louise, everything is so personal. Is it going to be a short-term stopgap, or is this going to be my forever home? Then am I buying into a lifestyle that one day I'll never have to worry about? That's no problem, because you're going to earn a rental income. So it's still, your property is going to be working for you here in Cyprus while you're sorting out your life. But you must consult with these experts. And I know you have a lot of your affiliates that are offering really good sound advice. Speak to them, spend the time, find out what the processes are that you're going to need to do to get that final piece of paper that says you've immigrated. Because the last thing to do is to worry about that. Even on the red tape with dealing with home affairs, make sure you have the right documentation. Unabridged birth certificate does not mean that handwritten certificate that we got 40 years ago. That's not going to count. Make sure that when they say a police clearance certificate is valid for only 6 months, well, if you're only planning to do the move in 2 years, don't get it now. Make sure you listen to the people that are giving you the right kind of advice. When it says unabridged marriage certificate, that's what we need. We don't want that little piece of paper that's at the back of your ID book. These are things, and it takes time. Home affairs is as good as they are. They also have their faults. Plan it. Sometimes it's worth paying a company for them to do the apostilling for you, because Durko at the moment is just not in a good space. They've got waiting lists and people complaining and stuff's been lost. So maybe pay a company that's their area of expertise, so that they can get that documentation apostille, because that's something that is going to be required wherever you go in the world. And the apostille stamp basically is that your original certificate, because it gets put into a folder, there's a physical ribbon and a wax stamp that gets on it that says, we as this authority verify that this is an original document. They're not verifying the contents of it, but they're verifying that it's an original document. And any country in Europe is going to need that. Any country in the Americas is going to need that. You want them to go down south to Australia, they're going to need this documentation. So make sure, as the whole family, you've done your due diligence, tick off your box what you need to get ready so that you can make that.
Yeah, it's obviously a lot of planning. Fortunately, with load shedding, we have no shortage of wax at the moment, so we should be fine there. So we can even have scented. It can smell like Seychelles. So I understand. So there's a fair amount that needs to go into the planning and the processing. You've made the decision. Say, for example, as you said, you've made the decision to invest. So you're going to invest in a property. Talk a little bit about how that payment, I know on your site it mentions, are you looking for financing opportunities, offers? What does that mean? Can you mortgage your South African home and leverage that against an international purchase? Often I hear the answer to that question is no. But what are the options from a financing perspective?
Okay, so on the slow track program, because you are going to be dealing 9 times out of 10 with a resale, resales have to be cash deals. So it's going to be extremely difficult for you to raise a mortgage in Cyprus. First of all, they want a 50% deposit, and it takes them between 3 and 4 months to actually go through the due diligence, the accreditation. They want about 3 years of everything, from every single account, every single bank statement. And for them, it's not really their core business to be able to finance to expats. Look, the mortgage rates are very low. So if it's something you want to consider doing, it's a road that you can take. On the fast track program, Louise, the financial commitment is you only need to put down 2/3. So of your 300,000 euros, 200,000 euros must be money coming outside of Cyprus. So in other words, from South Africa, wherever you have accounts around the world, plus of course the VAT portion, plus of course paying for the lawyer's fees. And the balance, which is 100,000 euros plus VAT, can be financed with the developer. And the reason that they're offering this bridging finance opportunity is that 10 times out of 10, if you're buying a new property, it's going to come from a developer. So they have the luxury of being able to say, well, we'll give you a 6-year term at a 3% interest rate. And we know we're not at risk, because if you don't pay, well, guess what? We'll just take it back within our portfolio and you'll be stripped of your residency application anyway. So that's in terms of the finance that is available. What I do encourage my clients to do, though, is it just does not make sense to try and raise money in Europe when you have the volatile rand. I mean, currently we're sitting at 18.50. 2 weeks ago, it touched nearly 22. It could go to 25. It could go to 30. We just don't know. Rather, try and raise money against your assets in South Africa. Take that money and then shoot it across. So if you have a home in South Africa and you want to refinance that, take that money and bolt it across. You will then paying back your mortgage in rands. And of course, if and when you sell and you decide to do, that's something that you'll be able to factor in. But that's my advice in terms of actually being able to raise and leverage capital across. And no, okay, you cannot finance a property in South Africa, in Cyprus.
I'll keep asking one day. So okay, so you decide to purchase, you've purchased and you're going to put this house into a rental stock because you haven't gone, you're not quite ready to make the transition. And you would like to keep it in the rental. Tell me a little bit. So I know you can manage the rental for the client. So if that rental is being managed, there's an earning of that rental. Obviously, a portion that goes to the cost of managing the rental. The other portion, will that then come back to, can that go into your Cyprus bank account? Does it come back to your South Africans? And are you then, how does the tax work?
Okay, so your money will stay in your separate bank account. Just because you're going to be earning euros, you can then decide if you want to take it back to South Africa, and if you're requiring any kind of funds, that's a very easy way to do it. But in terms of how the money works itself, so you'll get your rental, it'll then go into your separate bank account. You'll then be able to freely transfer via online banking to your South African if you so need the funds. And your taxation in Cyprus, where you're only liable, is your first 19,500 euros each is exempt. So if you have a property that's owned by two people, we're looking at 9,000 euros worth of income, which is substantial. It's like 500,000 rands equivalent before you'd have to start paying any kind of tax. You should, as a diligent taxpayer in South Africa, declare that you have a property overseas and you're earning a rental income. That's the call that I think you should be making as an honorable citizen. And then, of course, you will then be taxed accordingly in South Africa. So whether you bring the money back or not, it should be on your declaration form in South Africa.
Okay. And you could obviously first run all your expenses through that property with regards to, okay.
Exactly.
Then the process, just like small things, you mentioned your fur babies, you've mentioned schools, what are the options for South Africans that are looking, and maybe just a little bit about the cost of living. Cyprus has got as you showed us on the map, it's got a sort of diverse country. There are a few sort of issues we've heard in the media around immigrants and other types of issues. How does that affect security, and what can a South African expect if they choose to move there?
Okay, so the first thing, I'm pleased you brought up the refugee issue, because it is a topical thing at the moment. One thing that everybody needs to remember is Cyprus is a gun-free country. You may not carry a gun. If you're found with a gun, you are put in prison, almost the key is thrown away. They do not tolerate anything to that. So your personal safety when it comes to being attacked or whatever it is at gunpoint is just not going to be happening at all. The refugees, we've had a flood over the last couple of years. I mean, these are people that are wanting to escape horrendous conditions. The total at the moment for the country has been 16,000 that they've had over the last 2 years. So if you look in the context of the population, which is around about 950,000 individuals that are living here permanently, it's not a huge amount. And what they are trying to do is improve their processing, because being a little island, it's been an issue for them because Cyprus as a country at the moment does not issue Schengen travel visas. So when these refugees arrive on the island, they're stuck here because they actually can't go. They don't want to be here. They want to be in mainland in Germany or in the Netherlands, or picking fruit where they can earn seasonal income, but they can't get there because they don't have the right kind of visa documents. And the only way they get around that is if the authorities here speed up their processing to say this is an exception to the rule and we're sending everybody across on that basis. It's actually also an offence, and you'll be jailed if you're found to be coming to Cyprus illegally. So that's not good as well, because it's again filling the prisons with the wrong kind of people. You want prisons to be for people that are doing bad crimes, not for people that are seeking a better life. So they've had to get their whole thing together, just in terms of how they process it. So get back down to the cost of living and the lifestyle. Obviously, South Africa, going out to eat at 18 to 1, it's ridiculously cheap. But however, I still look at the benefits of a Cypriot household income and what you need. You're looking at much more or less the same as living in South Africa, except you have the benefits of free medical. That is a massive important factor. Even if you took out a private medical insurance, you'd be looking at about 1,400 euros for 2 people for 3 million euros worth of hospital cover around the world. You're not going to get that kind of cover in South Africa. You're looking at the cost of medicines. Maybe if you are somebody who's got Parkinson's disease and your bill in South Africa is maybe 2.5 or 3,000 rand, your backtrack to Cyprus will be around about 120 to 150 euros. So it's a lot less in terms of what you got. On Gessi, it'll be free. On the national health, you wouldn't pay a cent. So these are some of the innuendos that make it appealing from a social point of view. So refugee issue, yes, they're aware of it. They're dealing with it. They're trying to get that sorted. Health and safety is no issues in terms of that, but you have that benefit of that big cushion of affordable healthcare.
So just on the if you talk about healthcare, medical, and you mentioned Parkinson's specifically, tell me a little bit about retire to Cyprus. So are there specific retirement communities? What is there a specific retirement visa or residency program that you can go on? Maybe you can just highlight what that system looks like.
So Lou, yes, there are a few developers that are looking to play in this space, but the challenge is that in Cyprus's law, they don't have something to protect retired people like we've got in South Africa, the Retired Persons Act. So the other issue is that because you have a very hierarchical estate duty winding up, what happens by law that's written to the Constitution, no matter what will you have set up. I'm married to my husband, he passes away. 1/3 of the estate comes to me and the other 2/3 goes to my children automatically. That's how it works. There's only a very small portion of your will that you can nominate outside of the family environment. So if you have an elderly person who's living in a complex and the law states that when that person passes away, that property has to go to the children. So the complexity is that you don't suddenly want now middle-aged kids or younger children living in the complex because they're entitled to it. And until we can force them to change the law to say that there'll be certain rules and regulations that will protect that specific estate that says on the death of that person, it has to go back to the estate for them to sell on to somebody of a certain age. It's going to be a very difficult thing to control because the Cypriots are exuberant. They've got the family. We want to live with granny and everything. It's a wonderful way of life. But the reality is people wanting to buy into a retirement village don't want that. They don't want to live with the locals and on their bicycles and the kids and screaming around and people are getting up at 7 to go to work and coming home at 6 after a day's job. That's not what they're buying into. So we don't have protected estates yet. It is on the cards. It was a massive landmark that was reached earlier this year that they've finally approved a crematorium. What? It's 2022. Remember, Cyprus is inherently a very religious country, and they do not believe in burning your body because that means you're not going to go up a hole. It means you're going to be up in ashes, and that's not part of their philosophy. But they had to listen to people that are living there. They had to listen to the number of expats that are saying, I don't want to be buried. This is my choice. So they've changed the law to accommodate that. And I think this is something that's in the process of being changed and altered, Louise, is that the retirements it's going to be happening. We do have projects where there are more senior people living there, but where the benefit is that you have all of the services that you would normally find in South Africa in one place available down the road. The ambulance is there. There's a medical center on site. They have facilities to take the people to the mall. So very similar environment, but it's not a protected institution like it is in South Africa with an act that actually stipulates and controls how people are buying and selling in villages.
And one thing we just didn't touch on, and I know we're coming to the end of our time, and if there's any questions anyone specifically would like to post in the box in the chat, please go ahead. Transport networks. So you know, obviously in South Africa, location, have something where there's lots of tourism, a strong transport network, transport networks around the country. Is that something, you know, is there a train and public services and metros and all of that? Sorry, I haven't had the pleasure of visiting you, which I look forward to. But maybe you could just give us a little bit of understanding of how you would get around in Cyprus.
Okay, so first of all, the municipal bus service is phenomenal. It's first world, it's world class, it's well policed. Somebody wants to get on the bus with sandy feet and a bikini and a sarong, honey, put something decent on, it's not going to happen. They don't have a metro rail system. The only railing system, believe it or not, that they have is closer to the northern part, where in Cyprus's copper fields we're actually inactive and working. So most people will get around with either a taxi to get between the different airports to their city or their town of residence. There will lots and lots of car hires, of course. We don't even in fact have an Uber. And the reason is because the government wants to try and protect that taxi industry, because it is very much a small mom and pop show that happens here. So they're very aware of not letting too much big corporate come in and consume a lot of the services that would normally be available, you know, market trends decide, etc. So you'll have the bus shuttles that will go between the airports and the big cities. You have the taxis that'll take you around. You can nip across on your yacht, Louise, between Larnaca and Paphos, and we can kind of get around there. So yeah, it's reasonably cheap. I mean, you got a weekly bus pass that'll cost you €5 or €6, and you can go around and do what you want. So it's certainly not expensive at all. But most people stumble around in their cars.
So do you recommend bringing your car across?
Nope. And I'll tell you the reason why. First of all, the European Union is very strict with the emissions. So if your car is not completely up to date and modern enough to spec, you'll spend a lot of money converting it. Second of all, being part of the EU, we have so many cars at much cheaper prices, different models than you get in South Africa. It does not make sense. Even in terms of bringing a whole container of furniture, unless it's a prized possession and something that's been in the family for absolutely ages, I wouldn't even look at it. You're coming to the Med. You're coming to a different climate. You're coming to smaller homes. This is not the grandiose lifestyle that we're used to in South Africa with your 2-acre property and your 10 bedrooms and en suites. You're living outdoors. You're living much more community living. So you'll find that a lot of the big, heavy South African furniture that, although it's beautiful and we love it, it's just not going to suit you. You want the fresh. You want the new. And, you know, we're part of the EU. You can get so much stuff ready for a fraction of the price that you could get in South Africa anyway. Have a fresh start. And that goes for everything from your appliances, your furnitures. Get a new car here when you move across.
And a last question, just on the fur baby question. Any restricted breeds?
Yeah, obviously the most vicious ones, which is the pretty sound. I think there's 3 or 4 of them that most countries in the world don't actually allow. But for the rest of them, they're quite free and easy. They do have a number of dog-friendly beaches, but most of them, to be honest, 95% of them are not for dogs. That's for humans only. And they are quite good with their trap, neuter, release programs. In fact, it goes for dogs and cats. If you happen to see any strays along, you'll take them to the local animal shelter and they'll do it for free. Sometimes they ask for a little donation. And I quite like the fact that Cyprus really is in touch with potential issues that could become, you know, a concern. I mean, if you have to count every cat, and just looking at the lifestyle of the way the cats breed and feral dogs as well, you know, you want to try and put that in, stop that as well. But the good thing is, if you're following the full quarantine process from a South African point of view, in terms of the timelines, when you get your last checkup before you put baby on the plane while you're sitting in business class sipping champagne, there is a definite 4-month process, and make sure the documentation is adhered to very strictly. My son moved across a number of years ago with his cat. We have millions here, but he wanted to bring his cat, I understand it. And the vet had worked out the dates incorrectly, and he'd calculated the time that the cat needed to be in South Africa from the date that he took the test. It was actually from the date that the results came back. And there was a 2-week period where we had to put the cat in the kitty hotel. And at 190 Rand a day, it's not a huge big thing to break the bank, but that was a cost that he hadn't factored. Then it's changing the ticket, because now you've got to put him on a flight that now can accommodate. And so just when I send through the information to anybody that's interested, stick to the timelines, speak to the local municipal vets, Onderstepoort is a great supplier of information. Dealing with your local provincial veterinary associations, they know exactly what needs to be done. So even if you've got your vet that you love and deal with all the years, just do the double check with the provincial guys, because they know exactly what will be required. And the last thing you want is you're off on a plane, family's with you, and the animals at the airport. That's happened. People have had to leave their animals at the airport until somebody could come and pick it up, or nobody. I mean, that's a frightening thought. Because they don't understand the timeline.
And you said the animals can quarantine with you once they arrive in Cyprus. You don't have to put the animal in a quarantine.
Yeah, and
that's actually just such a relief to know that, because that's always been a very big concern of mine is, what is the conditions of the quarantine facilities, and can you see the dogs, and what will it do for them psychologically? And we're obviously pet friendly people. Yes, exactly. So thank you so much. Jenny, I always find your presentations so excellent, so great information. We obviously, guys, those of you are watching, those of you watching now and later, we have recorded this presentation. We will distribute. We have Jenny's details up on the group and also, of course, on our website. And we will share information about Jenny and the opportunities as well. As you've seen, it's a beautiful country. There's a lot of different choices that you can make, whether it's to invest through property or not, your amount of time that's available, access to universities, access to schools, and then, of course, the not having to worry about your animals. And there really is a fantastic option. So thank you so much, Jenny. I hope you enjoy the rest of what is probably a beautiful sunny day in Cyprus.
See you soon.
In the middle of winter, a beautiful summer's day. And we will chat to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.